Now, we have, like, crossed paths before. I distinctly remember a con where you stopped by during autographs, I think, to say hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously, like, you know, online we've seen each other, but there was one, not just one, but one main reason why I wanted to have you on, and this has been something that has applied to other guests as well.
I'm super curious now. Now you got me hooked. Yeah. Because I don't even know what
besides
you're...
obviously the fact that you seem like a, you know, relatively cool dude, but also
I like that you tempered the expectation. You're like, relatively cool from what I can...
Yeah. Listen, I'm still we're getting to know each other,
Okay,
right? But, you know,
fair.
as far as, you know, I can tell, you know, solid dude.
Thanks,
but
man.
You made a tweet about that it was about... was it Shonen Jump? And I was like, yo, this guy a fucking weeb? This guy old school weeb?
Not even monthly.
Am I wrong on this?
Not even monthly, or not even weekly, son. Monthly. Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like a reformed weeb, but I keep falling off the wagon. I had periods of my life where I was absolutely deep into anime, deep into manga, even beyond the sort of mainstream, and then I went and did adult things. Like I went and got my master's degree, and I moved to Los Angeles and pursued a career. So I have like this weird gap. I've got like this.
Right.
I've got this late 2000s to early 2000 teens gap where someone's like Soul Eater, and I'm like, what the fuck is that?
Okay.
But other than that, like from the 90s to like most of the 2000s, and then since I've been in the voiceover industry. Yeah, I still very much enjoy JRPGs and manga and anime and all that for sure. That's funny. That is not what I was expecting you to say. So, nice work.
See, this is the kind of stuff that I'm interested in. Like,
sure.
I like to, you know, or would you like me to ask you how to become a voice actor? No.
I could set the booth I'm in on fire right now while I'm in it if you'd rather. But
no, I love digging into just like what people are into, or were into, or are currently into, and so. I would love to know, just to start off, like, you know, what got you into the anime, the JRPGs, like, you know, what your favorites are or slash were, you know, kind of, let's just dig into that first.
Bro, the 90s were weird. Listen, we were partaking in Japanese content without really knowing it. Like, if you were like a kid or an adolescent in the 90s, you know, they were retooling so much stuff to where, you know, if you're playing Super Mario and you're 5, you don't know that it's coming from Japan. Like, you don't understand any of that shit. And what's crazy in the 80s and 90s, they were really good at like, and I say good with a grain of salt because I don't know if it's good or not, but they were really good at Americanizing Japanese content. So, you know,
like your American Mega Man covers.
Yeah,
and, you know,
exactly.
Like
yeah, American Metal Gear Solid covers for. I still remember it for like I think it was PS1. I want to say, and but then also the mainstream stuff that we're getting. Like I would watch shows like Sailor Moon or something, and not know I was getting this sort of watered down version of anime. Like I also, and a lot of the animation was coming out of Japan. So like I think that's where for like people my age, and I know I'm dating myself, but yeah, about to turn 40, but like I think people my age, that is their memory of it. Is sort of that's how you get into it, and then as you get older. And you start, you know, finding out through the social circles of what you're actually consuming. You're like, oh shit, Street Fighter's from Japan? Well, that makes sense, you know. And then you start to realize, oh, this is the media I'm enjoying, and here's where I can get more of it. And back in my day, that meant going to Fry's or like, you know, Babbage's or some shit and finding like ports and getting like a cracked PS1 so you could play whatever. Or like, you know, you get on your Dreamcast and you'd be like, what's Berserk? And then you start playing this game and you're like, this is badass. And now Berserk is my favorite anime. So that was sort of like my soft entry into it. And then I really started to nerd out in college. I was in the dorms. We had open co-ed dorms, and I was pretty deep in the weeb game. I'm talking like bad Japanese wall scrolls and like, you know, like that kind of shit, not realizing now how cringe it is. And then we would open up our door and just have DBZ on. And I think it was like Cell Saga was the arc that was on when I was in freshman year. And people would swing by like, what is this? And you're like, this is anime. Come check it out. And watch these dudes scream with me for 22 minutes. So, yeah. And then as I learned more about it, I was like, oh, okay, this is what anime is. This is how I get into it. This is how I do it. And that was sort of how I started reading manga about that age too, like 2001. You know, I subscribed to Shonen Jump Monthly, and that's when all the OGs were in there. It was like Yu Yu Hakusho, One Piece, and Shaman King, Naruto. And some older run stuff was in there too. And then they would do like specials. I don't think they had rights to Bleach, but they would run like 3 Bleach chapters, and then the next thing you know, you're at Barnes and Noble going and copping like 1 through 20 or something like that. You know, spending your lunch money on manga. So that was my entry into it, not even realizing sort of what I was watching. I think the first anime movie I ever watched was Ninja Scroll, I want to say, where I realized it was anime. I probably shouldn't have been watching it at the age that I was at. I think it was one of those things like I went to the video store and I was like, I want to watch this, and my mom was like, it's a cartoon about ninjas, sure. And
I feel like it's a rite of passage. Like everyone I know who's ever watched Ninja Scroll is like, I watched it at way too young an age. You know, it's like that is the gateway.
When
for
the
a lot
snake
of people.
Comes out, you realize what you're like a little bit of violence you're okay with. When that snake pops up, you're like, what am I watching? But
just everyone's blockbuster rite of passage.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess just some general questions. First off, just favorite anime. You have a favorite anime of all time?
Oh, man, that's really hard. Well, Ninja Scroll ended up being one of my favorite anime movies, but it feels so dated now. But I just remember like it sort of transporting me, like that and Memories. That anthology.
Oh, Memories is great.
That anthology movie. Yeah, and it was trippy because last year they did a full remaster redub, and I ended up doing it. And I had like these bizarre flashbacks of like, wait a minute, I saw this movie 25 years ago. It was hurting my brain. But like, yeah, most of them were like blockbuster experiences because I'm from like rural Midwest. So I was watching Akira, I was watching Memories. I knew that I didn't really know I was searching out anime, but I knew what aesthetic I liked. So I would find these movies and watch them. But I all-time favorite serialized, like Bleach is up there for me, just because that was my first manga that I really started like buying regularly.
Oh, gotcha.
And then and obviously huge DBZ fan from that era. But like modern shows, I really love My Hero. Like I enjoy it a lot. The fun part is I get to work on some of those shows now. So yeah. So for me, it's a trip. Yeah, I'm a little more selective about curating what I watch for pleasure these days. So yeah, since I'm in the business, I'm like, okay, I have watched 20 hours of anime this week just by working on it. Am I gonna sit down and watch, My Neighbor the Dragon Warrior Slime in the dungeon? Like, I don't know.
Reincarnated 1,000 years ago. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty common story. Like a lot of voice actors I talk to are like, yeah, I was into it. Now I don't really watch it anymore. Some people like me just never stopped. Just gobbled it up. For our entire lives. But it's nice to hear because I get it. There are plenty of people in the industry who no idea what the fuck anime was or have no connection to it, and they just were just actors, or they were just and then they grew to love it, or they that sort of thing. But it is always nice to when I'm like, fellow weeb, huh? There's that is always kind of what gets me interested in, like, I kind of want to sit down and talk to this person for a second.
It used to be my bio somewhere. It used to be like undercover weeb or like undercover nerd. Right. Because when you're trying to be professional, there's this fine line that you walk between professional and fan. And I feel like the people that are best at what they do have a passion for it that maybe has a genus in fandom and then evolves into just wanting to help make the art. So that's I feel like that's tightrope I watch. And let me be clear, like if a dope show comes along, I will gobble it up in a day or two, especially if it's bingeable. Like and there have been some stuff that I've been in where I was like, oh yeah, I sat down and watched Jujutsu Kaisen. Or like when One Punch Man came out, and my dad was visiting. I think we were building a booth in my old place, and I was like, Dad, let's watch the show. It's 12 episodes. And the next thing we knew, in like 2 nights, we'd watched it all. And my dad, who's never watched anime, was like, that was awesome. I was like, that was so fun. And I was like, yeah. So, you know, if something really quality comes along, I'll definitely still watch it, even if I'm not in it. In fact, I prefer if I'm not in it. So,
yeah. What are some recent examples of stuff that you've watched that you weren't in, but you still really enjoyed?
Oh man, a lot of films. Like I really loved Your Name. I thought that was excellent. And I know that was a little bit ago, but My Hero up until now, like I'm about to voice the main bad guy in the 3rd film. But that was one I was just watching for no reason, because I thought I can turn this on and it's fun and it's silly, and I don't have, and I love the voice acting and I love the characters, and I was like, I can just watch this and you know, enjoy it and not have to think too hard about it, especially because up until the pandemic, I'd never really worked with Funimation before. And for me, hearing voices that I'm not used to hearing, like if I'm watching the dub, and I do like to watch, I watch subs and dubs probably equally, but I do like to listen to the dubs just to see sort of like what's the baseline quality out there right now, and which can be wildly, you know, I'll defend dubs all day, but it can be wildly
can be pretty far apart.
Far apart. You can tell the gaps in the quality of production, you know. But that one I just enjoyed really watching. That was a big one. What else did I watch? Oh, I was catching up on all of the body horror stuff. I was catching up on Gantz and Parasite. I really loved Parasite. It was one of those that had been on my list for years, and I was like, yeah, and I just went on this binge. Then I watched what is it? It sounds like Inuyasha, but it's not. It's about the old man.
Describe it.
It's the old man.
What's it called? Inuyashiki. He turns into a robot, right?
Yeah, he turns into a robot, and then he's got the bang.
Inuyashiki.
Yeah. And I loved that one. I ended up watching the live action remake, which I never knew, which was also awesome. So yeah, it depends. It depends on what's going on in my life. Like that's like
no, absolutely.
Wife's asleep, kids are asleep. All right, I watch some anime.
Basically, what happened with you and a lot of people with anime, that's kind of me with video games. Like I loved video games, and I still love video games. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm a giant fucking nerd, as can be seen by anything I've ever posted online. But I used to eat up video games, and nowadays it's much like I'm lucky if I can like play like one or a couple a year, if that.
Yeah.
And then for some people, like I know we're both friends with Ray. Like Ray, loves games. And that's like his thing. So my next question is sort of like if anime has sort of like it's kind of dropped more, let's say not casual, but less frequently than your hot-blooded weeb days. Then what is like when you do have your free time, or if you have your free time, what is like what's your shit? Like, what do you most love to do, hobby-wise or anything like that, interest-wise?
I mean, I think as far as like if we're talking about like consuming media, which is very different than you're a huge board game guy, I don't think you would probably lump that into the same use of expending time. I don't necessarily believe that consuming media is a hobby.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like it's not. I think a hobby is something that you have to invest, like you have to like increase a skill set and sort of gain knowledge. I think that's the main purpose of a hobby. I think consuming media is more of a pastime and entertainment. So if that's the question, then I'm a huge cinephile. There's rarely a movie that comes out that I don't watch, even if it's bad. And I love to go to the movies. The last 2 years have been crushing. Not to be able to go to the theater. Like I'll literally like if I say like the wife and kids are asleep and there's something that I want to see that I know my wife's not going to have any interest in, I'll literally go catch like the 10:45 show by myself. You know, like that's because I know I won't get to see it otherwise. But then I also get in trouble if I'm wrong too. so I love movies. Obviously, I love music. I listen to a lot of podcasts when I'm driving a lot. So I would say outside of like cartoons and video games and anime, I think film and really good like dramatic television, that sort of thing. Yeah, I really like that too. Yeah.
Well, what are some of your favorite films, just offhand?
Oh my gosh, I used to have I think I still have it on my computer. I used to have a full top 100 list that I would curate.
Oh shit.
That's how much of a fucking dork I am. I think it used to go something like Braveheart, Goodfellas, Seven Samurai, those kind of sort of like heavier films I'm really into, like the Brian De Palma stuff, the you know, sort of I love modern gangster films, like those are some of my favorites. And then I also love really bad shitty Roadhouse movies, you know. I mean, I love it all. I'll watch almost anything. Yeah.
What is the last movie you watched in recent memory?
What did I just watched? Well, last night I just put on the Star Trek remake again for some reason while I was working.
Oh, the first one?
Yeah, I had it in the background.
It's a solid. Yeah,
hadn't watched it since the theater, so I watched that last night. Night before that, what did I watch? I watched a movie. I can't remember what it was. And then before that, it was Ray's movie. It was *Malignant*. I sat down with the wife and I was like, "This is fun. This is like old James Wan. Like, this is like, it's got like some Raimi sort of feel to it. It's pulpy and ridiculous and utterly stupid and completely fun. I really enjoyed it as like a popcorn movie. And then, you know, my buddy is like the lead voice in it, and I was like, well, that's fucking sick. Like, I had such a good time. We did the whole thing. We dropped down the projector, made popcorn, like sat down, like full-on movie watching experience at the house to watch that one.
Nice. Yeah, I just recently watched for the first time, speaking of *Malignant*, which I should watch *Malignant*, but I saw *Insidious* for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
Like 2 weeks ago or like a week ago? And it was great. It was really fucking fun.
Yeah.
I think of his stuff, I haven't seen like The Conjuring, but have I seen... I might be mixing up directors here.
Conjuring is James Wan, I'm pretty darn sure.
Conjuring is him, but I haven't seen The Conjuring.
It's super solid. I know. The mainline ones, the third one's the weakest, but the mainline ones are super solid. I really enjoyed them all. Yeah. Well, the most recent one was, what was it? It's like... it's got a name, or I can't remember what it was. But it was the weakest, but it was still fun. Yeah.
A couple friends and I, we do a regular weekly movie night. So what we do is we take turns bringing a movie. And what we've been doing lately is so we've done like weird themes. Like during November, we were like, all right, we're gonna do a planes, trains, and automobiles quote unquote theme. So like someone picked Con Air, and then I picked Snowpiercer. And then have you ever seen Spielberg's Duel?
Oh, Spielberg's Duel. No,
it's one of his. I think it might be his first movie.
Oh, you got me.
And okay, it's fantastic. It is a thriller action film about, I don't want to say too much,
sure,
but it's just a guy driving, and that's kind of all you need to know. It just that I don't want to say what happens in it, but it sounds
that might be one of those that like I saw forever ago and it just left the memory. But I gotta watch it again now.
Well, then rewatch it or just watch it because it is it's just wild. And that's a great one. So that was like, but what the recent thing we've been doing is we were like, okay, I don't remember how this came up, but can we come up with not a favorite movie, but like a movie we really enjoy for every letter of the alphabet, title-wise. And each of us came up with a list, and so we've been switching off. We've been like, okay, I start with A, which I presented Assassination, which is a Korean... I describe it as like Korean Inglourious Bastards.
Yes! Oh my gosh. That's
great movie.
Is that older? It's a little older, right?
A little older, but not that... Maybe like, I want to say 5 or so years ago.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. I don't know if I've seen it, though.
Some other ones that have come up along the way. Have you ever seen Dear Zachary?
Oh, no,
That's a documentary, which I'll say for you and for those listening, don't look up anything about it. Just watch it. It's a documentary. It's mind-blowing. But it's best to not know anything going in. A lot of these movies, it's just like, let's just watch it, just go in and experience it for yourself.
I'm going to have to re-listen to this podcast just to remember all of your recommendations.
Oh, yeah. One thing that you'll learn about me, or maybe have learned about me, is I love recommending things to people. Like, movies, shows, board games, whatever, food, restaurants. I'm a very, like, I gotta try all these things, blah, 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 blah. That's so when you said, I'm a nerd, I did the top 100 movie list, I'm like, yeah, it's so nerdy as I look at my 10 lists on my computer of like things.
Well, we're the perfect counterbalance, because I have a note in my iPhone that I've been carrying over since like the iPhone 2, and it's just called Random Reminders. And it's reminders and recommendations that people have given me, but I don't give them any context. So if you were to say to me, like, Spielberg The Duel, I would just put it in my phone and forget about it. And I still look at it, and, like, all of a sudden I'm reading the Sandman comic, and I don't know why. And it was because it was in my reminders from, like, 2011 or something.
That is smart. Yeah, I have a friend who does this very similar thing. And I'm like, yeah, that is good. Like, because I'll get a recommendation, and I'll just be like, oh shit! Like, what was it? But
yeah,
that is smart. That is smart. I had another question. Probably about movies or something. I just, if we want to just talk about movies the entire time, honestly, I could. Oh no, I do remember what it was, and we can be brief on this, because I'm sure you've talked about it 1 billion times. Yeah. But so I'm always interested for people who, like myself, were fans of like anime and stuff like that. Now, so getting into the industry, was it, I'm sure it was primarily like, or I would just love to know, just short, the, TLDR, what got you into the voiceover sort of industry?
I was joking when I said I'd set myself on the booth. And I still love my job. So I'm super glad to talk shop with someone that's also in the industry. That's a pleasure. That's a pleasure for me. What we were joking about is what's not always a pleasure is when you get the run of the mill questions that you have answered a million times. But and
I think I might have touched on this before, but it's a little frustrating, because it's always presented as if there's like one easy answer,
which is obviously not.
How do you do it? Because I just want to do it, and it's like, well, and I've been pretty frank to people before, and I even made like a whole video about it. I was just like, if you're asking this, you're already behind. Yeah, I'm sorry. You're already behind.
I watched that video. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I believe, I think you say at some point, which has sort of become the easiest pat answer, is there is no one path. It's not not like just signing up for the military and this is how you end up working your way up to sergeant or whatever. Like, there's not a way to do it. It's not climbing the corporate ladder. It's a lot of talent and a lot of happenstance and a lot of luck and a lot of right place, right time. And I think one of the biggest things about it is it's like the Jeremy Lin effect, right? Like, when your time comes, that's a sports reference, sorry. It's like when your time comes and someone passes you the ball, you better be ready to fucking drain that three. You know what I mean? Like,
yes, exactly.
Because you get those opportunities so very rarely, and when they come along, you've got to be queued up for them. So that's when somebody asks me that who's a beginner, I'm always like, get your skills down first. Like you're talking about entering an incredibly competitive marketplace where even people who've been doing it forever may not get the monetary support, and you may never have something that hits as an actor. So just know that what you're trying to do is difficult. I also say I'm just a fucking kid from the middle of Missouri. Like, my odds of ending up here are way, I don't have family in the business. I don't have any of that sort of thing. Like, I sort of just busted my ass and made my own way. So that's where I started in the Midwest. I started doing theater. That's a very common story. Went professional when I was 10. doing professional plays. I went equity, and then I started doing summer stock when I was in my adolescent years, and then all the way through high school. I did participate in high school theater, but I also did pro shows during the summer when I wasn't in school, or I would get time off to do a couple of weeks at a regional theater. And then this I did take a fairly traditional path. Then I went to undergrad and started in a conservatory program. Didn't really love it because I've been doing my theater my whole life, and I felt like the education part of it sucked. Like if you're in a BFA conservatory, you only have to do 12 hours of like general credit shit. And I told my parents, I was like, hey, I'm in college, but like I already have my equity card, and I feel like everybody in my class is dumb. And I don't like it here. Like, what if I went? Yeah, it's like, what if I went to a state school, or what if I went to what if I went and got a BA instead of a BFA? And if I liked it, I'll go get my master's. So that's exactly what I did. I auditioned all around and got a full ride to UNLV, and I went to UNLV, and they take a graduate class every 3 years. So they were like, okay, come to undergrad, and you'll be right on track. You'll come in at 22 and take over and start teaching courses. They didn't have TAs. We were all PTIs. We taught the undergrads because the undergrad class was so big. So I did that for 3 years, got my master's, and then in 2007, when I was 25, I moved out to Los Angeles and started kind of grinding. And then when I left grad school, I had the idea of wanting to do voiceover. So I took 9 of my friends, wrote demos for them all, and we all did demos, and we launched a little company website, and this was our weird backdoor in. And we had a very diverse group of people with a very diverse group of talents, and we marketed ourselves as like a one-stop shop. Like, oh, you want to do your short film? Come over here. You want to do a commercial with a cast? And we did stuff together, and it was a dumb idea, but what it ended up happening is it launchpad of the 9 people, myself, and then like one other person who really used the website and the company to do it. So that was our weird little idea of trying to break into the industry. Did it work? I don't know, but we all got demos out of it, and the people who wanted to capitalized. So, and then the rest of it was just a grind. It was get a shitty agent, do shitty jobs, get a slightly better agent, get better jobs, chunk until you end up sort of at the best agency that you can be at, and then working on like AAA stuff. And for me, that was about a 14-year journey, but I haven't had a side. I've been full-time for about 11 years now. I haven't done anything else but voice acting. So
yeah. And I mean, a lot of it, for people, it even on the outside, it looks very glamorous or whatever, especially, and to be fair, when I was, because I'm curious, so like, so you've been acting for a long time, but for some people, for me, I think it was like high school where I was like, oh, I would love to be a voice actor. But for you, it was more like I'm already acting, professionionally. What sort of sparked the interest in the voiceover specifically?
Yeah,
was it your love of the medium before, or was it just like watching it behind the, I think it's a different story for a lot of different people. Yeah,
but it's definitely a little bit of both. A lot of it was the love of that part of the industry. I used to run home to catch afternoon cartoons. Absolutely. Like I would sprint home, and I sort of had the same realization in like middle school, high school, is like, oh, those are people doing those voices, like that's a job. I'd like to do that. And then it evolved a little bit in college because in 2001, Final Fantasy X dropped, and I was a huge Final Fantasy fan. And to my recollection, that was the first Final Fantasy that had full voice acting in English. And it was Tara Strong, John DiMaggio, James Arnold Taylor, who all go on to become icons. And I'm sure there's more in there that I'm missing. And playing through that game was a really like emotional experience for me because I really enjoyed the game. But I also went, oh, this is the future. This because I'd never played a game like that. I was like, this is 80 hours of content. I wonder how long this took. This had to take a couple of years. This is 20 times longer than your average movie. So so that was like the very first spark of that idea of, oh, it's not just cartoons. Like it's everything you hear on the radio, it's everything you hear on TV. So that's sort of planted the seed for me. And
gotcha.
So I had it in the back of my head, and then when I moved to LA, obviously I pursued all the traditional paths. I worked in commercials. I did a couple of films. I did a few television guest spots. I did stunt work for a little while. And then I was making a living doing that. And then I just sort of realized the limitations of my appearance And that had always been an issue for me because I'm mixed ethnicity, so I'm like 1/6 Native American, but like the way I look, it's very dominant. Like I have dark features, I've got jet black hair, So if you were to cast me in Los Angeles 15 years ago, you'd probably try to put me on a show like Longmire, or you'd try to find me a supporting role in like Twilight or some shit, But I realized pretty quickly that I was too much a person of color to play white, really. And if you want a Native American, you can put in a call and you can have 50 guys from the Lakota reservation come down, and they're going to give you a level of authenticity that I wouldn't be able to match, regardless of my acting skill, especially for the types of parts that they were. And then I was doing some stuff for like UVN and like Hispanic marketing and commercials and stuff like that. But then they'd ask me to speak Spanish, and I would go, oh yeah, well, I can do a very accurate accent, but I don't look the part, and I'm not the part. And it became really apparent to me, and even in theater, I would experience that, because I would go and I would do these shows. And before, 20 years ago, it was like, well, you're not going to cast me in a Noel Coward play with a bunch of like super waspy white people. It's just not going to happen. And if your Shakespeare play is hyper British, I'm not going to be. It's not going to be me. And that was just the stone cold truth of sort of the ethnicity aspect of casting. That where everyone told me when I went to LA, they were like, oh, you're multi-ethnic. You're going to go out there and crush it. You'll be able to play everybody. And I was like, yeah. And they're like, oh, they don't want everybody. They want this one thing. And so the idea of becoming a full-time professional actor under those circumstances seemed more and more bleak, even though I was making a living on camera, like good enough to survive, like where I didn't have to have a side job. But at the same time, I wasn't doing the kind of work that I wanted to do. So that's when I sort of started to pivot into voiceover. And the more I started working in that, I became less available to audition for projects on camera that I didn't want to do anyway. So in 2014, I told my on-camera agent, sayonara, and that was it for me.
Yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense. Like, I still very not nearly as often as voiceover, but I do have an on-camera agent, and so I do read. Yeah. But it's in my mind, I'm like, I don't care. I just don't. It's like I'm sorry, like I don't. White leads, best nerd friend. I don't care. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where I always approach it like, yeah, that'd be fun, but what am I really interested in? Voiceover. I love voiceover. It's what I was interested in the first place, and it'll, and like you said, physical appearance means nothing. In that if you can perform,
you know what the cool part is though, if in 5 years you change your mind, you can, because a guy like you has the skills to do both, and I don't necessarily know that always crosses over. So if in 5 years you're, and I'm just picking a random whatever, but you go, you know what, I just don't have the passion for voiceover I had anymore. I want to go try to pursue my on camera again. There's nothing stopping you. You can just do whatever you want, as long as you got the quality chops. Which obviously you do. I'm gonna call it a Vine, but like I saw your short YouTube the other day that were like how I'm cast for my voice, and you're like, I'm the hero of Agatha, and then you're like, and I was like, I mean, I get it. But while I understand that self-deprecating humor, and I don't fully agree, I would also say like I get the point. Like I play like 14-year-olds, and I'm a 225-pound 6-foot Indian. It's like what are we talking about here? So voiceover is cool, man. You can be really transformative. It's a lot of fun.
Right. Now, I like to give the guests an opportunity, if you would like. Is there either a question for me you'd like to ask, or a topic that you would like to bring up? And if not, don't worry about it.
Dude, of course. You've been hitting me with questions the whole time. So let me ask you this,
what's up?
As a child of the internet, because that's where I know you from before we met
Sure.
by working with each other. What has it been like for you to transition through all of the different platforms? Like right? Because you were a Vine guy, OG, right? Like that was your no. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'd say if we're going through my sort of origin story of online presence,
yes,
then the initial seeds would actually be Tumblr.
Whoa!
Yeah. So,
Tumblr's scary for me. I don't know anything about it.
I don't do Tumblr anymore. Tumblr has become a very scary place.
It's evolved. It's evolved, right? Okay.
Yeah, but back in like let's say 20. Oh God! Now it's like what 2012 now. You know, about nine or so years ago.
Okay.
It wasn't nearly as scary as it is now.
Okay.
And around that time, that was like me going, I really want to do voiceover. No idea how I could possibly even fathom getting into it, but I know I want to do it. And this, I'm like, if it's 2000, what did I just say? 2012. If it's 2012, then I'm about. Oh yeah, no, I remember. I just graduated college, and I'm like, fuck. I'm like, what the fuck do I do, right? I like obviously I can try to get like a quote unquote I don't want to say like a real job, but like a more traditional job that my parents might want me to, or go to graduate school, which is nothing wrong with graduate school, but it was not like something I wanted to do. You know what I mean? Like if there was a career that I really desperately wanted, I would do all the, I would do all the work in the world. But for me, I knew it was voiceover, so I started Tumblr, and listeners have heard this, but I'll give you the scoop on this. Is basically I started Tumblr and I started doing an audio clip every day, and I did it for 4 years or something like that.
Whoa!
Like, yeah. So that was my start. Was like I just pure level grind, because that was shit. I was I look back at like 10 years ago. I was just a kid, right? Out of college, like who had no real experience at all, and so. What it was, though, was exponential growth for me, because
of course,
and I tell people this all the time, like, the most common, if I TLDR, how to get into voice acting, or really whatever you want to do, is just start doing it and do it all the time, but without any guarantee of success, right? So for that was me. I was like, okay, I know I want to do this. I know I'm not that good, but I'm gonna just record myself. So I recorded myself doing different like scenes, monologues. Just that's all I did every single day. I literally did not miss a day for many years, because I was like, before then, I would say, if we're truthfully speaking, like YouTube was like very early YouTube. I would like put up stuff, but I would always be like, it takes too long, and nobody's watching, whatever. And then I was like, okay, so to motivate myself, I was like, okay, then do this thing. You can do this. You can sit down in front of a microphone and record yourself every day, and do something. Doing that is better than nothing.
Well, let's talk about why. Let's talk about why that separates you from the pack, because if you want to get into brass tacks about how to get into this business, that's actually a pretty shitty question. Because I think the real question is, how do you get good? And that is such a part that people miss. Like, how do I get in? And I was like, I don't know, get good first. And
exactly.
To be fair, there are a lot of people out there that are very good that will never break in. They'll just have bad luck their whole life, and that's fucking life. Sorry, it sucks, but that's just the truth. But where that story, which I've never heard before, resonates with me is because, sports analogy, if you were doing anything at a high level that required practice, that's the way to go about it. So not only now does the internet love you because you're consistent, and the internet loves consistency, but you are sort of unwittingly, and then apparently purposefully, running drills, like doing something every day. The sitting down and doing of it. The hardest part about writing is sitting down and writing, and there's so many people are so full of shit. They're so full of ideas and maybe even talent. And if you don't do anything, if you don't run the drills, if you do not get good, you will never succeed. You might be able to skate by a little bit, on your chops and your talent. There are undeniable some people with just some God-given talent, but you have to capitalize on it, especially if you're not the best starting out. Like you said, you suck. I highly doubt that, but you've obviously been given a gift. You've got a beautiful, sonorous, lovely to listen to voice. You would be a dummy if you didn't capitalize on that, and you are, and by running those drills, that's why you're finding success and other people aren't. And a lot of people will look at you or whomever and go, oh, they just made it because they were early in the Tumblr days. And you're like, well, no, he made it because for 4 years he did a thing that you want to do, that you just think you can do, but you're not putting in the time. So that's how you get into and then get good at anything. So I really love that story. That takes
it was all just grinding, right? It was not just grinding for acting, but also like, I eventually, it started as like, just doing like scenes from existing things, but then I started to, I think even before, I had always, like in college, I did like acting stuff and, and writing. I would write scenes and like comedic scenes, and that was also, what started getting me attention on Tumblr was like, not only like, after a certain point, like, oh, like this guy's pretty good, but also like I would write comedic audio stuff. On Tumblr, it has this great feature, which Twitter has only very recently implemented, where you could just do audio clips. You just press play, you listen to a thing. So, just me recording like a shit post. It's something that people do now, but this was me, ages ago. This was before Vine, and this was like how people started to get to know, like, oh, like, and there were, started doing like indie games, like booked in my first indie game like 2014, and like, and then as it's a grind, right? So if you from there, you get referred to here and there, and people go, oh yeah, this guy's good, you should audition him and do that, and that was sort of the build up. A lot of people think I just sort of appeared out of nowhere or something, out of like YouTube or Vine or even, but just know that there was a 4-year period of not, I started from literally zero. I started from no one knew who the fuck I was, and I was like, oh, I don't care. That wasn't even the goal. I didn't care if anyone knew who I was.
But that's such a poor, well, I know, okay, I'm glad you said that, because I'm not judging what you said, but I think that's such a poor metric of personal success, of
absolutely,
how well
I 100%
you're known.
Agree.
And people conflate the two, because there are plenty of people out there with hundreds of thousands or 1 million followers on whatever social media, and who are dying to do the caliber level of work that certain people who have a couple thousand followers who don't give a shit about social media are doing. It's a really poor metric. Some people, though, are smart and have been able to leverage both against each other or for each other, and that's a smart play. But dude, I was a rising star for like 6 years, and then the next thing I knew, I was like, oh, he's in everything, get him out of here. Like there's no fucking in between. You go up, and then you're like, wait, now you don't like me anymore? What are you talking about? He's like, newcomer Robbie DAYMOND. I'm like, bitch, I've been doing this since 2009. What are you talking about, newcomer? I'll kill you. I've got 200 credits on IMDb, and they're all good. Like, get out of here. Like, so, but yeah, and then the next thing you know, you're an old timer. So it's a funny business in that way. But
right.
How cool.
Yeah, and then that led to Vine, and then other things, and an accidental YouTube career, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I for me, the rule of thumb has always been, though, like, I have to only do what I enjoy, if I'm lucky, like that. So for YouTube, the way I approach YouTube has always been, I only do what I like to do, and I don't care if you don't like it. I just, if you like it, that's great, and if not, that's fine. This wasn't what I was setting out to do anyway. But for voiceover, I take it very seriously. I've taken it seriously for a very long time, and and funnily enough, because you kind of mentioned that, like, for that there might be other people out there. Not there might be. I know there are. There are other people, like, you'll hear like a big streamer or something be like, yeah, I think I want to get into voice acting, and to me and some people might say, oh, that's hypocritical. You're someone who's online, but for me, I knew how hard it would be, and it took me a very, very long time to even get to where I am now. And so I just feel like, you know, I look at when someone like says that, I'm like, that's cool. I just hope you're prepared to work your ass off.
Well, if you're talking about the down and dirty truth of what it means to be a professional voice actor these days, it has shifted wildly just in my time in the business in the last decade and a half. Because I would say a lot of people will say, oh, you're in this golden era where you've got so many more opportunities. And I would make the argument that, yes, that's true, but it also comes at the sacrifice of quality. And I think there's a lot of amazing stuff being made, but there's such a glut in media. And we've also, unfortunately, sort of dismantled the way that actors get paid. Like, you know, our union's slowly been disintegrating, in my opinion, and residuals have become, used to be what actors relied on between gigs, because gigs were so few and far between.
Yeah, now it's streaming and everything and all that. It's become very
so
fuzzy.
I make the joke.
Yeah.
I make the joke that I'm doing 6 times the amount of work that I was doing 10 years ago, but for the same pay, because the shows that I was doing 10 years ago were series deals and they were airing on television, and it's a whole different animal now. So if you want to be a professional voice actor, you better learn how to grind in every single form of that you can do. I think gone are the, like, unless you're just a real specialist commercial guy, and even that, commercials are getting destroyed and turning all non-union, mostly like 70% or something. You need to be able to do commercials, promos, you know, audiobooks, cartoons, video games, anime. Like, at this point, it's more about casting a wide net and getting. That's how I've survived for the last 15 years, is because I do a little bit of everything, and then also generating your own content has become a massive part of it. So, you know, you say streamers are like wanting to do voiceover. I'm like, look at the number of voice actors streaming right now and kind of doing it shittily. Like, a couple of people are doing it well, and I think congratulations to them. But like, very few people have the chops to do it on the reg and consistently and have the charisma to carry a channel. And that's a younger person's game, but you know, more power to them. And the ones that are doing it great, I'm stoked about. But like, they'll be the first to tell you too, you want to be a pro streamer, you better get ready to grind too. You know, like it's this. Everything takes work, and I've always thought, as a lifelong actor, that the stigma around being an actor is easy, and I could do that. It's this very deceptive thing where the thing that you're watching seems like it would be easy to do, and it's totally belies the truth of what it takes to do it. And I'm not exalting us like, oh, it's so hard, you know, like, no, fucking it's harder to be a firefighter for sure, but it's also not an easy profession just to break into either. Yeah.
I mean, the job is to make it look easy, right? You know, to make it seem effortless, to make it seem like, oh yeah, so natural. But I mean,
it's supposed to be effortless, joyful, natural, organic. Like, those are all the things you shoot for in acting. The only problem is it takes a long time to learn how to do that. Can you pretend well enough to fool the entire audience? Because if you suck at it and a couple of people hate it in this internet day and age, they're going to let you know. You know, so we're much more intimately connected to the audience than we have ever been before. So get good.
And get good, and get good, and we mean that in the most constructive way. Like, you know, just
of course,
get good, and it's funny, as I've, you know, there are people. Because I think you touched on something that I thought was very true. That, you know, there are certain people that are amazing who like won't necessarily, maybe not, or not. I don't want to say will never, but you know, aren't necessarily getting the success they deserve, right? And I 100% agree with that. You know, you know, even when I was doing, you know, like indie game stuff, you know, I'm always telling people like, that, you know, you got to be able to compete, because even on that level, and I hesitate to say that level because I think a lot of those actors are fantastic, but you know, competition is fierce. It is fierce. They are very good, and a lot of them have since, you know, gone up into, you know, bigger and bigger stuff in the industry. And then it's like, you know, if you are going to try to do this seriously, it's like, can you take on every other actor out there who's working? Like, that's essentially what you're doing. So it's and I've heard stories, from people like, who weren't necessarily ready, and they step in and they choke. Of course, it's not a good look, and it's unfortunate, and it is a thing where you have to just get as ready as you can, and so that when that door opens, you fucking knock it out of the park, and they go, oh yeah, no, this person's
ready.
Great.
Sports analogy number 3. Here comes hat trick.
Yeah.
Oh, does that make it 4? I don't know.
Yeah, let's keep it going.
But it's not. It is not a team sport, nor is it even a one-on-one sport, nor is it boxing or tennis. It is a fucking battle royale. It is you versus everyone. And one of the best things that I did in this business is I feel like I've made a lot of friends with my rivals. I took the true anime. I took the true anime path. It's a rising tides, right? Lifts all ships, and I really believe in that. So when Max and Ray and I, who we do a lot of work together, and we've become great friends and business partners, and we do a live show together and all these things that we do together. The reason that we were brought together is because we were working together, and therefore competition. And the smartest thing we ever did is say, well, why don't we just be buddies, and why don't we help each other out? Well, early in the days, we would listen to each other's auditions, and we would say, hey, did you get this down the pipe? Like, we would talk inside ball and be like, yeah, I think you'd be good. Let me throw your name in the hat for this. And we would do that for each other. And it's one of the, I could have just as easily been like, fucking Max Middleman. He just booked that. And if you get that starvation mentality, that spiteful mentality, you're out the door. You can't, you will never survive in this business, because it's full of rejection and strife and difficulties and ebbs and flows and ups and downs. And, sometimes it's great and sometimes it's not so great. And you need to have a tight circle like that. Yeah. So, whenever someone that I trust, because I keep my circle tight. Whenever someone I trust says, oh, hey, you really need to know this person, go, like, I don't do a lot of podcasts, but I'm going to do a podcast for you just because I know you, the times we've chatted and through Ray. And like, that's when someone like that vouches for someone that I know, I just go, oh yeah, of course. Yeah. Let me talk to this person. It sounds like they sound awesome. So
I'm 100% the same way. I do keep, there are people who, like, how can I word this in the politest way? They kind of want to be friends with everyone and to charm everybody, right? They're like, oh yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that's just not my personality. Like, for me,
Bro, I'm right there with you. Like, even though I've been a theater kid my whole life, I've always been like that outside looking in theater kid that still did sports and, still did outdoor stuff and, still was not always like just do or die that. And like, the problem with, like, quote unquote Hollywood or whatever you want to call it is there is this sort of sycophantic mentality that you can also get along with the starvation mentality, that nothing is more off-putting to me.
Yes. Like,
you want to be nice to everyone, you want to network, but when someone comes to me who I kind of know at a cursory level and they reach out, and I go, what's up? And then I can predict when they're going to ask something of me. And that's unfortunate, because, like, I've tried to never be that guy, and every time I've asked for something, I've always tried to bring something to the table. Sure. And I don't want to dissuade people from reaching out. Like my very first job out here in 2009, I was partnered with Stephanie Shea on this animated pilot, and I'm green as they come. 26, I run out, or it's 2008 maybe. I run out to her and I'm like, "Hey, you're so cool. I know this is weird, but like I'm super new to this." And it was with Warner Brothers, and I'm like I'm super new to this. It was my first booking thing. I really liked working with you. Do you think I can just have your email and like ask you questions? And she became a great friend and was so helpful to me. Yeah. Like, don't think things like that or whatever, but like, I'm friends with Matt Mercer, and him and I have been buddies for years, and we've been in each other's circles, sort of like, rotating orbs. I go to his wedding, he comes to mine, like, we're buddies.
Sure.
And never once did I ever think to be like, Matt, can I be on Critical Role? Because how fucking sick of that would you be if you're Matt Mercer?
Yeah.
Like you'd have to be questioning every friendship of every voice actor that comes along.
Right.
And I never did that. And Matt would say things to me like, hey man, we'd love to get you on the show sometime. Be like, yeah man, if it happens, cool. I'd love to, of course. It sounds like fun. And then it never did. And then this year, he sends me a text. He's like, what are you doing this year? And I was like, oh cool, it's time to do the thing, fun. And I don't know. I think having genuine friendships in this business where you can be mutually beneficial for each other and sort of help each other out, that's the way to go. And I think as Hollywood and online relationships change I love the VO community as a whole and the things that we do to each other, do for each other. I think it's a really positive community, and I think things are shifting that way to where we all just sort of help each other out.
Yeah.
And I really look forward to seeing sort of like where that goes. I think that culture is because we realize, we're just freelance artists and we've got to help each other. So.
And I think also, I feel like with this generation of actors, a lot of people just have the same interests, a bunch of fucking nerds, right? A lot of us are nerds in some way or another. And, that leads to just, for me, what makes me want to quote unquote befriend or like even just reach out and be like get to know someone. I had you on because I was like, this guy's a weeb, huh? This guy's a weeb. Okay, like
one tweet, huh? That's what it did.
It was like that. I think it was like another. But very similarly, I had Zara Fuzzle.
Oh yeah, we worked a couple of things together.
Yeah. She made a tweet or something about like Utana, and I was like, yo, she fucking knows Utana. I need to talk to this person. And then it was a great, I had worked with her before, but I had never gotten to like really know her. You know what I mean? Like, but I love sitting down with people.
Though, isn't it? Isn't it bizarre though that like isn't it bizarre that it took this podcast for you and I to spend an hour together?
Yeah.
And and I think it's so cool that we got to do it, but at the same time, like you might not ever do that with some of your long-term relationships and or that you've had online. I know a million people online that I feel like I know that I realize I've never met them face to face. And that's the bizarre world that we live in, especially now in these super bizarre times.
Yeah.
But yeah. Listen.
Yeah.
I want to come play a board game with you.
Okay.
I am tragically terrible at it.
Okay.
Like my skills end like Monopoly, but I'm not an idiot and I can learn rules. So listen, if you ever have a space at the table, somebody calls in sick, let a brother know because I'll be there. I will.
It's funny you mentioned because I was about to do a little bit of like, oh, by the way, I'm going to ask you a question. I have something to ask of you. Robbie, and that's I was gonna ask, how interested are you in board games,
But here's the thing, you don't use that, right? Like you don't, that is your joy, right?
I fucking
like
love it.
You might make, do you make any content about board games at all? Ever?
I do. I make board game reviews, but they do historically not nearly as well, but I just do them because I love doing them. Yeah.
But you're not like you don't have like a board game live stream or anything, right?
I'll do charity ones every now and then, but no, I'm not like, hey, you got to watch my board game show. No, I don't have anything like that. No.
Yeah, you're playing it because you love it.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
And that's so cool. And I know that of you from your social media presence that like that's your passion. And what I'm interested in is partaking of people's passions. Like that's why I would like to come play board games with you, because there'd be no capitalizing on it for me. It just sounds like fucking fun.
What have you played in the past?
Oh my God. What's the one with meeples? That one's super fun.
The one with the meeples? My friend, that is a whole genre.
But the OG meeples, what is it? Not Carcassonne. Carcassonne. That's really fun.
The tile laying. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I can understand Carcassonne I have the big box with all the expansions. I can follow that.
Okay.
I've played a few like RPG ones. Like I've gone on and like I've done like little shows where they're like, we're releasing a new one. Come play this for 3 hours. I was like, and I I really love it. But mostly I just love being around the table and bullshitting. If you said come play cards for 4 hours, I'd be like, let's go. But if you said come play this super weird space mining tabletop, I'm in. Let me know. I'll be an idiot, but I'll be a lovable idiot if you have me.
For me, it doesn't matter what level of experience or whatever. It's just the interest. So yes, absolutely, I would love to have you. I mean, especially, you know, I have Ray over all the time, and I mean, because I mean, Ray is like, he's a hungry board game player. I've found, you know, he's very fun to play with, and I would, you know, I'm always looking for me. The board gaming is something that has been just one of my favorite things to do. I mean, I mentioned before I don't do video games, and that's because board games have basically taken the place. And for me, it's so much more satisfying because it's social. You know, you get to you know, do stuff with people, and I love learning, you know, new games, and like I don't know. It's just, for me, all of my hobbies, or even if it's media consumption, is just like, I love trying the next new thing and just becoming you know, let's start having a mastery knowledge, so I can be like, not only because I can recommend stuff to people because I love recommending stuff, but also just experiencing it all. I'm greedy. I'm gluttonous. I love, you know, I want to play as many different things or do as many different things as I can. So I would love to have you over for that, man.
Yeah, if you ever need a village idiot, I'm your guy. I'm in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, this has been great. Where can people find you?
Oh, God. Oh, you had to do that. I know. We have to do that, don't we? Just Robbie Daymond everywhere, like Twitter. Actually, no. On Instagram, I'm not. Oh, no. It's my old Instagram name. I am Robbie Dangerous. Don't listen.
Oh,
don't.
shit. Okay.
Bro, I know. Listen, we're talking the OGs of Instagram. I thought it was badass. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids.
It is badass, but okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Twitter and Instagram mostly. I have a TikTok, I think, but I haven't posted a video in like 3 months. You know, just I'm around. Come find me. Come hang out. I always love new people.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, man. And we should game sometime. Let's
do it.
All right.
What a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.